Welcome to the session today. I hope you are all well. As Danielle said, my name is Kaylee and I am part of the SHL team that runs the assessments. So Danielle, I just want to confirm that you can see my screen. Great. Okay, so I'm just going to take you through a brief presentation today, just about what the assessments are, what you can do with the results, sort of the power of the results, and answer any questions you may have. I know that embarking on assessments can be a bit scary, it can make you feel uncomfortable, so I'm here to answer any questions and just put your minds at ease, but also just to help you, give you some insight on how to leverage off the results that you receive. Okay, so just to introduce SHL, so we're a market leader in assessments that are used in the talent acquisition and talent management in organizations. Ultimately, what we do is we take data and we help our organizations and our clients make sense of it. That data is sometimes in the form of psychometric assessment results. Other times it may involve other aspects. Okay, so what can you expect in your assessments? Ultimately, what happens is you receive a system email inviting you to do the assessments. The assessments are pre-selected for you. So you will do a combination of personality and cognitive ability assessments, normally between 2 to 3 assessments, just depends which ones. And then upon your completion of the assessments, you get a report and that provides you insight into your assessments. And you have access to results. Now, these results are not just your assessment results, they're actually a powerful source of information that you can incorporate into your development. So should you decide to sort of embark on the assessment process, there is just some important information I want to touch on. When you do the assessments, it's very important to read the instructions carefully and to complete all the practice and example questions. The practice questions are available for your cognitive assessments, and what they do is they give you a sense and a feel for what types of questions you're going to get asked. It's very important to do these. They sort of warm up the mind and give you a sense of what's to come. You can take breaks in between the assessments. The cognitive assessments are timed. So those ones you can't take a break during them. When you're doing the personality assessment, you can take a break during that. But once you start a timed assessment, we're not able to reassess you or to restart that timed assessment. So just be 100% sure that you are ready when you do start it. Additionally, when you are doing the personality questionnaire, there's no right or wrong answer with this. So ultimately, you do have to choose an answer, but it should best reflect your behavior or your preference rather than what you think the company wants you to answer. So remember to do that. And also make sure you have enough time to do the assessment without interruption. The assessments, if you're doing the cognitive abilities, they take about an hour together with practice and time. So you would need to set about an hour. I do not encourage you to do these assessments at work, or if you have your little ones around, you need to be able to focus and concentrate. And anyone walking in the office will distract you. So make sure there's no distractions on that side. Ultimately, it's best to be in a quiet room, but also don't open your email, don't have your phone near you. You really do need to focus, and you need to have a stable internet connection. Now, I know that in South Africa, this is sometimes a challenge, but ultimately you do need a stable connection. So it's best not to hotspot off your phone. We have found that sometimes there's not enough stability with the platform that the assessments are on. So I do encourage you to have sort of a stable line rather than using your phone. Now, a lot of people ask what they can do to prepare for assessments, what can they learn, and we do get clients Googling this and looking for answers. Now, there's nothing you can do to prepare except have a good night's rest. Ultimately, it's not psychometric assessments are not sort of tapping into your previous learning. It's not a knowledge-based assessment. We're tapping into an ability. So just a good night's rest is the best thing. Have a cup of coffee in the morning and do the cognitive assessments in the morning. You can do your personality at any time, but your cognitive assessments need to be done before you are cognitively exhausted. and it doesn't actually take much for us to be exhausted. So just make sure of that. You want to give yourself the best chance possible. So doing it in the morning is quite important. If you consider yourself to have a disability, then just make sure you also communicate that to the relevant parties so that if we need to make any possible adjustments from our side, we can do that. If you lose connection at any time, now we know with Eskom, this is quite a possibility. So if you lose connection at any time, our system can actually pick up if there's been a loss of power. So from our side, we can pick that up. And what happens is it will capture where you were at and you can relaunch the assessment and it will recover any progress you've made. So just be aware of that, but that's only if there's a loss of power. So also while you're doing the assessment, please don't push the back button on Chrome or Firefox, whatever you're using. That will, again, log you out of the assessment. Okay, so those are just some tips before you get going on your assessments. Now, the actual assessments that you will be doing. This is very much just a broad summary of the types of assessments you'll be embarking on. There's, as I said, depending on which program you're applying to, there are 2 to 3 assessments. The first one is your inductive reasoning. Now, your inductive reasoning, the questions basically look like this. What happens is you get a series of pictures that follow a pattern. You then need to choose the 5th picture in the pattern from a series of options. Some people love this assessment, others don't. It's looking at how you are sort of able to understand the relationships between various concepts when there's no sort of clear logic or explanation. So I really struggle with this. Some people love it. Maybe you'll enjoy it. It actually is quite fun. It feels like more of a game. Overall, there's generally 15 items that you need to complete in 18 minutes. Now, 18 minutes sounds like a long time, but it goes very quickly. So you also need to sort of balance your speed and accuracy. So don't sort of overanalyze a question. If you get stuck, rather move on and try the next one. Okay. Also, it's no point in trying to memorize the sequence of questions. So we have, no one does the same assessment. We have a bank of questions of equal difficulty that are generated according to the person's ability that the system picks up on. Okay, so just be aware of that. Your numerical reasoning. So again, here's an example of one of the questions. Now, sometimes you do get questions that are either in dollars or it's asking you for a ratio or percentage. If you do get currency questions, it's not about the currency, it's about the numbers. So that doesn't change the concept, so don't put it by the dollars. What it's looking at is if you can interpret numerical information. So remember, ability is also like a muscle. The more you use it, the more easy it is to do. So numerical reasoning, if you have to interpret numbers, it'll probably be something that you find slightly easier. But you get presented with ratios, graphs, and you have to interpret those rather than performing actual calculations. There's 10 items in 18 minutes, and those 18 minutes go very quickly on the numerical reasoning. Then you have your verbal reasoning. So your verbal reasoning looks at drawing logical conclusions based on the information provided. You may have to identify strengths and weaknesses of arguments and complete scenarios using incomplete information. So this is our verbal reasoning. There are 12 items in 18 minutes. Again, goes very, very quickly and focuses on how you interpret sort of your written data. Are you able to draw conclusions from that? And this is quite a fun assessment. It's my favorite. Then you get your personality after the 3 cognitive assessments. So your personality, it's a standardized measure that looks at personality attributes that are likely to have an impact on your performance in the workplace. It's about 104 items. The average testing time is 25 minutes. To be honest, it does take a little bit less than that. I would say about 15 minutes. You may get a warning if you're going too fast. So for example, if you know yourself really well and you're able to answer, you may get a warning. Don't worry about that. They just want to check that you are answering and reading the questions correctly. So just to flag that. Now it looks at your preferred ways of behaving. So it's not to say and set in stone this is who you are, but it looks at your preferred ways of doing things. There's no right or wrong answer. It's quite an enjoyable assessment. And as I said, it looks at your preferred working style, not ability. Okay, your answers are then compared to a comparison group. So when we are working with psychometrics, what happens is we don't give you sort of a score like 6 out of 10. We compare you to a comparison group. Comparison group is a group, a large group of individuals that are equivalent or similar to either the position or the program that you are applying for. So for example, if you are applying for a management role, you would be then compared to a group of managers in South Africa, because that's where we are at the moment, to make sense of that and see how you were able to perform in comparison to them. So that is how your results are interpreted. And it helps us understand in comparison or on average where you sit or where you should sit in terms of your performance. Okay, so just this is more of a resource after you've completed the assessments, and I wanted to put this in very much so that you are able to sort of understand the reports. So just in having a look at your reports, this is what your result would look like. Okay, so your cognitive ability, we give you a grade. So it's from A to E, and we explain exactly what that grade means. There's also a lot of nice tips that you can use to enhance the skills. And those development tips are available for each of the assessments. So you get quite a nice report, but the main report is the development action planner. So this is a report that is really geared towards supporting your development in whatever sphere that may be. So it really summarizes your typical style at work in terms of 20 competencies. Now it does use SHL's competency framework, and you may find that not all 20 competencies are relevant to you. You may want to pick out 2 or 3 to work on at a time and focus on those. But it does give you insight that you can use as sort of a foundation to build your development from. It gives you, you're able to identify your strengths, potential development areas, and because it's an objective assessment, it may give you a different lens on your performance. Okay. You also have your overall rating, and there's also a template for a personal development plan, which I will just show you. This is what it looks like. My suggestion is always to transfer this onto an Excel document and work from there. And what's really nice is that in the report, you do have development tips again that you can work with. Okay, and just in terms of that development, now I'm just going to briefly go through here. This is again a resource for you to consult later on so that you can do your development. Just remember to prioritize the things that are going to make the biggest difference in your performance. So obviously we're not going to focus on something that is not relevant. Things like adapting to change are really important, so we may want to focus on something like that. Your preferences are neither good nor bad. It's your own personal choice, and it doesn't mean that you can't do something in the opposite way. Use the information gleaned from the assessments to enhance your self-awareness and self-insight, and there are some questions to consider. Okay, just some guidelines for creating your development plans. Just remember that most of our learning does happen at work. So it's good to perhaps include the development tips in the workplace. Those are very useful. This is just generally your personal development process. It starts with feedback on your results, which you will get after you've done your assessments, and you can move through the different stages from identifying your strengths and development needs to setting objectives, choosing your development activities, getting any support, then setting deadlines and milestones, and reviewing progress made. Now, I have included more information in the slides on each of these steps, as you will see here, and you can make use of that. Okay, and then just a reminder, when you are setting goals, make sure they are SMART, so they can be measured, and this is just a little guide to sort of help you along the way. Okay, then just in terms of your growth experience, assessments are used in recruitment, but they are also a powerful tool used in development. They help us sort of get out of our comfort zone and stretch and flex our skills. Just remember that if you start to feel overwhelmed or panicking, you may have stretched too far, and just slowly move back into that comfort zone. Development is on the back of comrades. It is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Rome was not built in a day. And development like this can take anywhere from 6 to 12 months. So just remember that. I just want to close off with a development planning exercise. So again, use your assessments to form a basis that you can ask these questions and reflect on where you're going in the next few years.